Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Kaarvan Crafts Foundation. A few weeks ago, I had a conversation with Dr. Rabia Khan and Mareen Shahid about the state of maternal health care in Pakistan. What we discovered was dismal and shocking. But considering the reactions that we got, which was a lot of interest and a lot of curiosity about what other issues are there surrounding health and females, we decided to take it further and look into the mental impact that COVID has had on families, especially on children, and on livelihoods, and how it has either increased or decreased productivity, and whether relationships have come out positive or negative. I'm pleased to share with me here today, we have Farah. Farah is a Farah is a clinical psychologist, and we also have with us Sana. Sana is a psychotherapist. Both are based here in Lahore. Ladies, welcome, and thank you for joining in today.
Thank you for having us, Meher.
Not at all. Now, we have been in lockdown since March in Pakistan. COVID has been around the globe since winter last year, but Pakistan imposed a lockdown in March, and we're still going through it right now. Obviously, currently it's far more strict due to the upcoming Eid celebration. Farah, I'd like to start with you. When the lockdown started, the initial reaction for everyone was, oh my goodness, we're stuck at home. What are we going to do? You know, people were thinking in terms of their access to entertainment, to restaurants, how it's going to affect their social lives. What nobody initially thought was how it's going to impact their family life and their careers. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Meher. I think people had a lot of diverse reactions to when they initially heard about the lockdown. So on the one side, as you said, a lot of people felt quite worried about how it was going to impact their day-to-day lives. And then you also had people who were quite relieved, like university-going students. Some of them initially felt, oh, yay, you know, time off from classes. Some people who were working from home felt that, oh, this is good, I get more family time. So there was stress and worry, and there was also some excitement amongst people. But, you know, regarding concerns about how it's impacted people, I think, again, that is very variable. And it's also something that we need to keep in mind. It's different for each person depending on their life circumstances. So, you know, one of the big factors is home environment. What is it like to be at home all the time? How supportive is your family? What sort of relationships do you have with them? And also, of course, socioeconomic status. So what you said about it affecting people's careers, I feel that's a big concern because there are people, let's say perhaps from not so strong socioeconomic backgrounds, where it's a very real concern about losing out on earnings, you know, and that creates a lot of stress. Whereas perhaps somebody who has more savings or who has more financial security might not be so worried about losing out on, you know, finances or earnings. So it is quite variable depending on all these different factors. I mean, generally, of course, there is stress, and we are seeing people respond with, you know, different reactions. So there are people who are coping quite well, who are able to set boundaries and, you know, manage to go on with their lives. But we're also seeing people who feel very overwhelmed. So, you know, being at home is usually a place that you associate with, I mean, again, this is a generalization. I know it's not true for everyone, but it's associated in most cases with like relaxation. You go home from work and that's your downtime, your family time. Now that home has become the workplace for a lot of people. So, you know, the work stress that they used to have and the hectic routine that they had outside has now come into the home. And there's a blurring of boundaries between different roles. So, you know, being a caregiver at home, managing responsibilities and chores of the household, along with child rearing for women, and for men also who participate in, you know, looking after their children. That comes in addition to also doing your regular work from home via the internet. Then there are connectivity issues in Pakistan. There are power outages.
Definitely.
So all
Yeah,
these sort of things coming in and creating that sense of uncertainty, blurring of boundaries, and additional responsibility.
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Sana, I know that you have said that, homeschooling can be good for children and it can also help parents build better relations with their children. I'd like to hear your take on it. And I personally feel that it's a lot more difficult to manage time. And therefore that can increase, a lot more angst amongst relationships and actually decrease productivity. But I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, my stance on the COVID lockdown situation is quite positive, Meher. Personally, I feel like it's been very positive for
Okay.
me. So I think because my husband and we were homeschooling our children since before COVID. I feel that this situation has actually highlighted some of the concerns that we had as parents and some of the things that we valued in terms of choosing homeschooling. This situation has brought it to the fore for others as well. And our children, for instance, feel more, they don't feel so ostracized anymore. Everybody's being homeschooled. Because I think that is the way forward. I think the fact that we have been plunged into this situation, as a blessing in disguise. Of course, I mean the death and the feeling of this impending doom or feeling unsafe. Of course, is there. People have lost their loved ones, but we have to see this as an opportunity to move forward, move towards the new normal, right? And the new normal has to consist of, reimagining things that weren't right.
Sure.
I think nothing in the pre-COVID situation was really working the right way, especially with schooling. I think the way private schools are being run here, I think it needs a lot of revision. It needs a lot of rethinking. I don't know if resources are utilized in the best way. I don't think our children are necessarily safe. I don't think teachers are well trained to deal with children. They're not they're pedagogically they're not well trained. They don't know how to educate children at different levels. The fee for private tuitions is very high, so that puts a strain on parents as well. So I think we actually have an opportunity now to actually address some of those concerns in this situation and really reconsider what was going on before and how we can address those issues now. So I think homeschooling definitely, of course, I mean, parenting, Meher, is a very wholesome task. You've got your hands full. Whether you have one child, 5 children, it's really how you look at it. But to think that there's any easy way out, there really isn't. Just like there isn't in anything you do in life. But I think we can make anything a joy for us if we just do it the right way, if we put in some effort into managing it the right way. So equipping ourselves with the skills that are required, equipping ourselves with the knowledge that's required to take on tasks such as homeschooling, for instance.
Sure.
So when we were talking earlier, I thought that I should mention that there are a lot of guidelines out there. So even WHO, the World Health Organization, gives you guidelines on screen times for children of different ages. The American Academy of Pediatricians, so you can go to their website, you can contact them for the guidelines on screen time and video learning and things. So there are a lot of resources out there. There are lots of online schooling resources as well. So I think it's about equipping ourselves with the right knowledge, with the right strategies to create the new normal that was that was needed, that we were
Agreed.
pining for, you know. So I think this is an
Agreed.
opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. See, now it's interesting because while I agree with everything that you said, for someone like, for example, myself, I'll put myself in this equation. I work 2 jobs, right? I have to work in the morning and then I have another one that I start at night. I found it very stressful to keep the balance between being a mother, being a wife, being a teacher, and being a professional. I feel that my productivity in every context has actually been compromised. But would you say that this could apply to a lot of other people, households as well? Or is this just, mismanagement of time? And that's what it means. Like Sana said, it's about, you manage yourself, you manage your time,
Sure.
everything is possible. But there's a lot
Sure.
of mental toll.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that you brought that up, Meher, because while I also do agree with Sana, I do believe that, this is a time where if we're more conscious of how we're handling things and we're more conscious and mindful in our approach to this, and we take a positive outlook, we can make, the best of it. We can achieve good things, and we can achieve a good balance at home and with work. But at the same time, I also agree, as you said, that undeniably we have to take in our lived experience as well. We can't deny what is happening for many of us. Like you said, that's your experience. I've also had a similar experience that, at home, I'm working from home as a psychologist, but then there's online teaching for students that I teach. There are online sessions with clients, and, then being at home, what my relatives expect of me at home in the home environment. So it's all three things in the same time frame. And yes, it requires mindful management. I do believe that's possible, but also it does cause stress, undoubtedly. And I believe that a number of people are dealing with that at the moment, because it's very different to what
Sana,
we're
what
used
would you
to.
say in terms of people who, Sana, what would you say in terms of people who say that, our house isn't a home, but it's now become our office or it's become a school? They're viewing it in a very negative way. What would you suggest? How does one tackle that? And how does one ensure that productivity in every context remains not as an all-time high? We're not asked to be Stepford wives, but just that it remains a healthy balance.
Meher, I think again, it's a matter of prioritizing. I think we need to prioritize ourselves, our children. So it's about choosing. We need to choose things that matter. We need to make the right choices. We need to ditch the ones that are not serving any purpose. I think one real sort of outcome of the COVID situation is people have been confronted with being locked in their houses, not going to malls, not going to restaurants. A lot of people are saving a lot of money on, things, frivolous things, which seemed, so necessary before. Kids are not pestering their children as much to take them to, this or that, or Funko or entertainer or wherever else, So I think we have, again, this opportunity to really reevaluate what is important to us. What is it that we really want? And if it's 5 things, then we need to learn to sort of manage them. And one way of doing that is scheduling. Simply just making daily schedules for yourself. So starting at, say, 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. and one for your children, one for yourself, one for your other members in your family. I think scheduling can really help with managing this sort of stress, the kind of stress that we have with life's tasks and things. So I think scheduling, I think just prioritizing, thinking about what's really important. People are not shopping as much. They don't care about the clothes they wear. They don't care about the jewelry they wear. They don't care about their children being like this or that. So I think it's really, again, thinking about what's important to you and what really matters. So I think we all need to introspect.
I think that definitely, Absolutely. Farah, do you think that this time for introspection is going to help us in the long run? I mean, I don't know anything about psychology or psychotherapy, but generally speaking, I find that there's a cycle, like you suffer, you learn, and then you grow, and then perhaps there are other stages, broadly speaking. But do you feel that, as Sana said, that if this time teaches us to schedule, use time wisely, and prioritize, and introspect, do you think in the long run people can perform better and maintain healthier relationships, or are we looking at a breakdown of how we know ourselves and how we live our lives? Which way do you think it could swing?
Again, I believe that we can make the best or the worst of it depending on how we take it, So I really like how Sana pointed out that just having a structured routine, scheduling, having tasks set at certain times, setting those boundaries for yourselves. So those are all positive steps. And the more positive steps we take, I think the more positive the outcome will be. But if we start wallowing in that stress and we start wallowing in the tension and in the misery, that's just going to grow from there. But it's when we take constructive action to do things that things improve. And again, this is a time for introspection. It is a time where we can consider what was wrong with the way we were living our lives previously. What were the sort of things that made us glad when lockdown happened or made us upset when lockdown happened? And why is that so? Asking ourselves, taking that time to connect. Because what I was seeing previously, pre-pandemic, pre-lockdown, was a lot of people who are in a very high-paced life where, you're always on the run. So many of my clients would come and tell me, it feels like from Monday to Friday, I'm running a marathon. And then Saturday, Sunday, I catch my breath, I breathe, and then I'm on a run again Monday to Friday. So, that's a really intense description. And you can just imagine the sort of stress that they would go to and the sort of hectic routines they had.
Sure.
So they wouldn't really be able to be mindful or to connect with their emotions or to understand their own thinking and emotional patterns. But I think this time where things are necessarily slowed down and we're in this enforced lockdown, it gives people a chance to really connect with themselves, look inwards, develop more self-awareness, which I believe benefits not just you, but the people around you. Because when you're more self-aware, your behavior is driven by more positive intentions and more positive outcomes result.
Of course. Now, Sana, here's the thing. Here's the dilemma. Here we are, the three of us, we're sitting in nice homes, we're sitting in an urban area. Now, the challenge is that, given that Kaarvan works with a lot of rural artisans whose livelihoods have been affected because they can't go out into the market, they can't earn, they don't have access to the bazaar, dhage, suya, adda ka kaam. How does one try to explain this to them कि बाजी आप घर पे बैठी हैं आपके लिए बड़ा अच्छा है, उनको तो अपने कमाने की पड़ी हुई या उनके खामन जो यहाँ पे मजदूरी करते थे या सब्जी बेचते थे अब वो घर आ गए हैं क्योंकि बाजार बंद हो गए हैं, कारोबार ठप हो गए हैं. So how would one sort of, when they ring us and they say that हमारी मदद करें, how do we explain to them कि जी ये आपके लिए बेहतर है? How do we sort of, it's frustrating because on one side we're trying to explain to them कि बाजी हम आपकी मदद करेंगे लेकिन आप थोड़ा सा सब्र करें, लेकिन वो कितना सब्र कर सकती हैं और कई दफा अल्फाज काफी नहीं होते. उनको किस तरह हमें बात करनी चाहिए?
Farah, would you like to say something? Or?
Yeah, sure. So Meher, this is something I feel very strongly about also, because I feel, in our society especially, like I really like what Kaarvan is doing and the way it's trying to empower people, because that socioeconomic difference that we see and people really struggling for their livelihood and unfortunately our government not being able to help that much. I feel that is very distressing. And it's very natural for them to be distressed at this point in time. And we are speaking from a place of privilege when we talk about these mental health, sort of perspectives that we can take and having a positive outlook. But again, I feel that it's not about denying their experience. So it's not to tell them, कि नहीं ये आपके लिए अच्छा है. That's not the approach. We can say कि you know ये अभी मुश्किल वक्त है और मैं मानती हूँ कि इसकी वजह से आपको परेशानी है, but let's look towards problem solving. So you know, I feel a big thing that we still need to develop here is computer literacy, so that people have access to offering online services. So even with their craft work, or even if they're selling vegetables, to be able to market it and sell it online, so that people can have continued access in circumstances like this, or giving them opportunities to, you know, develop such skills. I feel that's important.
Absolutely. That's something we certainly looked at. We had an online exhibition and we've given them an e-commerce site as well, where they run their own shops and they're free from exploitation from middle management.
That's very
Sana,
exciting.
you were going to
hear.
say something? Thank you, Kaarvan.
Exactly, Meher. I mean, just like, you know, with online teaching, where in a classroom you could maybe teach 1,000 people, you know, 500 students in a lifetime. You can reach out to millions online. Similarly, you know, people can have access to millions of people or customers online. So that's those sort of steps are exactly what we need again in creating the new normal. So the new normal has to be for everybody, not just for the elite. So, you know, everybody, of course, I mean, it has its challenges. It's difficult. It's a rough road, but we have to get to the other side. And the other side is not where we were before for anybody. So I think just making them aware of the situation at hand, कि अब ये सूरत हाल है, आपको ये पहले accept करना पड़ेगा, आपको इससे you have to confront reality and you have to accept it कि जो पहले था वो नहीं होगा. You know, अब एक नया दौर आ रहा है और इस नए दौर के लिए हम सबको अपने लिए, you know, our people, I think, are generally very, very, you know, entrepreneurial. They're very hardworking. So we can find solutions. We can find, you know, businesses. We can find solutions to any kind of, you know, circumstance. So I think just making them aware at the moment of the gravity of the situation and the fact that we're headed towards a different era, if you want to. I think that would really help them, because then they would also mobilize themselves and their own resources and their own networks to really, you know, be able to face up to the challenges ahead, just the way we all are doing in our own capacity.
Absolutely. You keep mentioning a new normal, Sana. Does this mean that, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is that we've definitely slowed down in living, which is good. Because as Farah said, you know, it's sort of giving us time to reassess ourselves and, as you said, to introspect. Do you feel that Pakistan and the average Pakistani's productivity is definitely going to change because they understand and they appreciate the value of their lives now, and they don't want to be, you know, stuck, you know, little cogs churning away in the cycle of capitalism? So do you feel that one of the things that you said was education and digital literacy? Now that parents are aware of how much effort it takes and the gaps in Pakistan's education, do you feel that in the long run, our productivity, or even the average Pakistani's productivity, will definitely improve?
Meher, I hope so. I mean, I hope that people actually can let themselves be shaken at this point to not accept what was before, because you know, if they can actually really try to appreciate the kind of discrepancies that were there before, I think we can really go towards a more productive and you know, it's not just about productivity, it's also about, you know, cultural sanctity. It's also about mental health. It's also about you know, social relations. So I just hope that we can, just the way, you know, the focus has been on, you know, scientific development, progress, you know, developing countries especially are, you know, under a lot of stress. I feel like this, because it's a worldwide phenomenon, I hope that we can actually try to, you know, again, think about the kind of society we want. And I think we have that clean slate to a large extent now, which is the blessing of this time. We can really
It
think,
is,
do
yeah.
we want to make automatons out of our children? Do we want to expose them to anxiety and addictions and then, send them to therapy, which is a given, in the current scenario, in the current, educational environment? Do we want to expose them to the kind of peer pressure and the kind of, a substandard education, or just, rote learning, or whatever it is? Do we really want that for our
Just getting the
children?
grade. Yeah.
So, I think we can read, and now we can make our own choices and head towards a more vibrant, a more inclusive, a more, relaxed, hopefully, cultural standard. I think that would be really,
Absolutely.
really something. And I think more than anything else, a more environmentally conscious existence, which is why I feel like we had reached an all-time low pre-COVID. And I think this is one really real lesson we can take from this. And we can, try to implement it in all spheres of life.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought up, children and the future that they were going to have pre-COVID. Farah, increasingly, there have been cases of children displaying anxiety and stress at a very young age. I'm talking pre-teenage. Do you feel that under COVID, these cases will increase, or they'll actually have a chance to connect with their parents and find ways forward to, I suppose, heal from whatever had been traumatizing them?
I feel, again, it's possible that it can go either way. With young children, it really depends what is the source of the anxiety. If the source is school and pressure at school, or bullying, or other aspects related to going to school, then yes, perhaps being at home will give them a chance to heal and develop a closer bond with their parents. But if the stressor is the parents and is the home environment and pressure from the parents, then I feel it's likely to increase, because being at home now, they don't have a chance to go out, meet friends, or, get away for a few hours. So really, it's quite an individual basis, but again, it depends on how we take it. So, for parents who do believe that their children are showing signs of anxiety or stress, it's important to connect with them and to build communication with them in this time, So do be an authoritative parental figure, but at the same time, create an open environment where they can talk about their feelings safely with you, and they know that you will listen and respond. Because there is a place for anger. Of course, when a child does something wrong and you need to discipline them, then that comes in. You need to be firm, and perhaps you display some anger. But when a child is sharing their feelings, and if a parent gets angry or reacts irritably at that time, then that child is going to shut down and not feel very safe opening up. So for parents who want to work on that, it's really important to build that relationship with their child. Spend time doing activities together with them, perhaps things your children like to do, reading books to them, watching movies with them, playing games with them, or just sitting and talking to them and, asking them basic questions like, okay, tell me, what are some of your hopes and dreams? Or what are your biggest fears? So inviting them to open up and creating that environment in the home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sana, as a psychotherapist, I mean, there have been cases where people have found living at home, working from home, managing relations at home, very stressful, and they've actually come out saying, look, I need therapy to deal with all of this. Do you think that has a lot to do with how these feelings, these emotions that have been buried under the lifestyle that they were leading, and now those issues? Is that a pattern that could be identified?
I think definitely, Meher, that's an important consideration. I think a lot of people, I've noticed this in couples a lot. People can't stand each other. They're just like, I can't be around my wife all the time. I need to go back. I get COVID. It's better than staying. But it's true. I mean, it's there, and it's and it's highlighting, you know, problems in the relationship. It's highlighting stresses which they didn't, you know, which were just kind of pushed under the rug earlier. And so definitely, I think, you know, this thing is bringing, you know, these problems in front of us to, you know, to be able to for us to deal with them. And I think, again, on a broader level, it highlights, you know, things like choices made in our lives which really don't matter to us, which hold no real meaning, which are just made because of herd mentality or because of, you know, this or that. So I think we can really, again, try to also see the problems with, you know, an unhealthy marriage, or
Yes.
you know, an unhealthy child who has unhealthy habits, or ordering junk food all the time, or, you know, sleeping late, waking up late. So all of these things have caused a lot of upheaval for people, and they are facing a lot of mental health issues. And I think one important thing is to seek mental health, you know, to seek a therapist out, to seek therapy, because I think that's what, you know, we're here for. So I think definitely one shouldn't shy away from seeking help during this time. In fact, you should be very proactive about your mental health, you know. And at the same time, I think you should also really, you know, again, introspectively look at relationships, look at things that are problematic. If a couple is you know, finding it difficult to be with each other, maybe they can actually try to now address those things which were never really ever talked about earlier, and they may just come out stronger, you know, because they are actually now confronting the problem, which was never even acknowledged before.
Absolutely. But Sana, here's the thing. There's a lot of stigma. You know, our generation is probably the last one, hopefully the last one, who would be told कि बस चुप करके बैठ जाओ, लोग ना बातें करें, लोग क्या कहेंगे. I mean, you know, Farah, I'd love your input on this as a psychologist. How does one deal with that? You know, I can't even begin to imagine what a woman goes through when she says something like, you know, मैंने थेरेपी पे जाना है क्योंकि ज़हनी तौर पे मैं परेशान हूँ. I can't even begin to imagine. Jinn chad gaya hai, pagal ho gaye. You know, these sort of things, cultural, societal issues come about. So, you know, and life under COVID is certainly different. But not everyone is able to cope. But then not everyone, and it gets smaller and smaller, right? So not everyone is able to cope. And then not everyone is able to get to therapy. Not everyone is even allowed to acknowledge that, hey, something is wrong.
Yeah.
How does one deal with that? How does one get empowered to the position where they say, enough, there is something wrong and we need to deal with it?
Yeah, I think each person has their own personal, you know, point of realization where they're like, this is enough and now I need help with this, or I need to go and seek help. But as you said, there are barriers, real barriers, you know, accessibility of therapy, affordability of therapy, and then the biggest barrier of all being stigma. You know, so on one side it is ke log kya kahenge, but on the other side there's also internalized stigma, that what does it mean if I go to a therapist? And there's that sense of shame associated with it, that if I'm going to a therapist, then there's something wrong with me, or that I'm mentally unwell. So there, you know, that's also something that needs to be challenged, because seeking therapy or counseling does not mean you're necessarily mentally unwell or that you have a psychiatric disorder. People take counseling and therapy for things like coping with grief, coping with stress, coping with academic difficulties. So it's a variation, you know, you can have mild difficulties, moderate or severe. And either way, none of them means that you as a person are flawed. You're going through a difficult time. Probably you've been through difficult times in the past, which has made you more vulnerable to this stress. And now you're struggling to cope. That's all. You know, at the end of the day, we are human. So we do have weaknesses and flaws. None of us is going to have that superhuman strength to just go through anything and always be positive, always be happy. So we need to challenge that internal stigma first, and then it's the external stigma. So you need to see who needs to know, first of all. Why is it important that logon ko pata chale? There can be a dozen reasons why you're on your laptop if you're doing online sessions with therapists. There can be any other reason why you're doing that. If you're going to see a therapist in person, there can be any other reason. It's not necessary to disclose it to everyone, but your close loved ones or people who matter to you and you feel that they ought to know, then in those circumstances, it's helpful to sit down and to prepare to have a really open conversation, and to discuss with them what it means to you to see a therapist, why you're seeking that, and, to hear what they have to say about it and be able to respond to that with your perspective.
Yeah. Sana, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I like the idea of having an open conversation, but, and again, like you said, that, this is the time for introspection because we're all stuck at home. Do you feel that these conversations in the long run will have a beneficial impact?
I think so, definitely, Meher. Just the way we're doing this, I think the fact that this is going to be on Facebook again, the reachability is so vast on the internet. I've had so many requests for students who are seeking out free mental health advice services, and people have formed organizations that they're reaching out to therapists who are offering free services also at this point. So there are lots of so again, being online is actually helping with that sort of thing, because therapists are at more ease than before in reaching out to a wider audience, and because you don't have to travel, or you don't have to set up a clinic and all of that. You can just do it from the comfort of your own home. People can reach therapists also. They can do it online. They don't people don't have to go anywhere, which may have been more problematic before. So it's become easier. Again, there is a lot of stigma. I struggle with it myself. I face these kind of slanderous complaints against seeking therapy all the time, and I find them appalling, but they're there. And I think we're hopefully headed towards a better situation with that as well. But I think again, this situation has brought mental health to people who would never talk about mental health before, because they've never faced a pandemic, they've never faced a catastrophe. So now that they're actually facing a real life catastrophe, they have even people who were the greatest critics of, or the hardliners who were like, oh, we are unshakable and we can never be, even they're shaken now, and they're like, okay, what do we do now? So I think mental health is more of an issue now. It's becoming more of a concern now. And I think that's very positive. I think, again, paying attention to our mental health is very necessary. And hopefully, we will be doing it more and more.
Absolutely. And especially in rural areas where it's more a case of earning a living rather than focusing on living. So that's a very difficult thing, and we tried to help out with our exhibition by if the artisans are given a little bit of hope, कोई उम्मीद की लहर उनको अगर मिल जाती है कि वो कमा सकती हैं, maybe then they can sit back and think about themselves. And what was interesting was I had a conversation in which two of the artisans came on board. And it was fascinating because they spoke about feminism, they spoke about identity, and I'm not sure whether it came about because of COVID, because they said कि जी हम भी घर पे बैठी हैं, हम भी बच्चों से तंग आए हुए, खाने पका रहे हैं, स्कूल भी पढ़ा रहे हैं, हम भी घर पे कार भी है, So I do feel that, Sana, like you said, that people are shook, they're shaken up by what's happening, and Farah, like you said, there's a lot more open conversation. Do you feel that this could be the time when women finally own their identities? I mean, Sana, you go ahead. That in terms of women finally taking control and saying, right, this is as much as I can do and I will do it and this is it. Or do you feel that women might be guilted, you know, this is what you were born to do. This is what you are here for.
Farah, why don't you go first, and then maybe
Go
I
on,
could.
Farah.
Okay, sure. I was waiting for you, Sana. Sorry about that. Again, I have mixed feelings about this because I do feel that, that is my hope, that I would like to see women coming out of this stronger, more assertive, more able to set their boundaries and have their balance and, yay, girl power. But at the same time, I have a slight hesitance also because, one of the things I was recently researching the impact of COVID-19 on adult mental health. So one of the things that came up was cases of domestic abuse actually increasing.
Yeah.
And of course, women are not always victims. There are men who are victims, children as well. But largely, knowing that largely it is women who are victims. So that was a bit very worrying for me to know that, this sort of impact also occurs where many women feel trapped in toxic, unhealthy situations right now, unable to leave because of the uncertainty of COVID, because of all sorts of restrictions at the current moment. Now is not really the best time to be seeking a job or starting something new. That takes time to set up, to organize, to market. So I feel those sort of restrictions might have a negative impact, but it would still be my hope, my sincerest hope, that women are able to come out of this, and able to find the emotional resources within themselves to be assertive, to set their boundaries, and to also be recognized for the work that they do. I feel that even household chores and child rearing, it is a lot of work, and sometimes it's taken for granted. It's, nobody realizes how much work goes into it. Often women are just called housewives. Like, I hate that term because you are not a wife to the house. You are a homemaker. You're making the home by taking care of those responsibilities and by your child rearing.
It's a full-time job.
Absolutely.
Sana, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, Meher, I think that's asking a bit too much of COVID, I feel, we've heard it's people. So I think emancipation for women at this point is really a moot point. But I do hope that, in a more open future, women would be more emancipated. But I think the really important thing for us as a nation, especially in Pakistan, is to again pay more attention to social sciences, to pay more attention to humanities. This focus on just building and running and scientific advancement has really not served us in a social and a cultural way. And I think once we start to, as a nation, and on a public level, really focus on social issues, we will only then move forward in any direction. I think right now, because there is no emphasis on any social issues, I feel even in people's choice of studies or careers, people don't think humanities is worthwhile. They don't think research is important. Research into culture and society and anthropology, or those kind of disciplines are not given any importance in our current curricula or in our current kind of outlook. So I think we need to really focus on what our cultural values are, what our social values are, and again, we need to define them and then redefine them. So once we do that, I think we can hope for any kind of real change in terms of gender relations and things. So
absolutely, I agree with you. We're nearing the end of the session. So Farah, any last thoughts you'd like to share with us? That sounds
Yeah.
so wrong, but you know what I mean.
No, that's fine. I know what you mean. In fact, I'm really happy that Sana brought this up, you know, even though it's at the end of the session, but this is something I feel so strongly about, that, you know, the study of humanities is discouraged in our society. Because on the one hand, it's seen as, you know, something that you'll not be able to earn from. And over here, economic security is so important. When parents are investing in children's education, they're thinking of it as an investment, you know. So it's something that you need to, I'm putting money in now so that later on you can support yourself. And then also because humanities are associated with art, with emotion, with, you know, these sort of things, they're seen as weakness also, you know, like as these fluffy subjects that are not serious. But really, humanities are what make us human, you know. So in my work with sometimes medical students, I really find that lacking empathy, just basic empathy. I find that when we're teaching them clinical skills, they can't show empathy, and it astounds me. And you know, I feel that that is what the study of literature, art, history, anthropology, sociology, those are the subjects that really help you build those skills, how to be human and how to be humane.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, Farah. Sana, any last thoughts you'd like to share?
So Meher, I remember you mentioning, you know, screen time and children and you know, everything. So I think a few thoughts that I'd like to leave everybody with are that screen time is not necessarily all bad. So you know, that's definitely one thing, because you know, because we've gone online, everything's online. I think we need to make our children more tech savvy. Rather than, you know, instill this kind of feeling that they're doing something very wrong, because they need to be in a very digitally comfortable you know, state all the time now, because they're headed towards a digital future. So I don't think we should treat screen time as the real enemy, but I think a few tips for that are that, you know, you should look at, again, the guidelines given by WHO and all, you know, other such organizations for the amount of screen time that is good for children and the way they should be exposed to it. B, I think it's important that parents spend time with their children to educate them on how to navigate themselves in the virtual world. So that is very important. I think if parents should, instead of using it as a way to just get rid of their children, or you know, get some time, buy some time from the children, that wouldn't that's not very good. But I think it would be a good idea for parents to spend time with their children to make them self-sufficient and to help them self-regulate in using the internet and screen. So I think that is something that's very important. And I'd like to thank you for having me. And Farah, it was a real pleasure to be you know, participating with you here, and I learned a lot from you. And hope to
it was lovely to meet you also, Sana. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, ladies, for joining in.
Thank you.
This has been a wonderful session. I feel that we've explored many sensitive issues that people have been thinking. But again, there's so much fear around speaking up. And I really hope that, you know, people who are watching this video will find the courage to come forth, to speak their minds, and to accept this new norm, which is, it's a complete overhaul of how we live on this planet and how we understand the world. And I hope that there's more empathy. I hope that children find their peace with technology and they live better lives than we have. I would not say that, you know, my experience on planet Earth has been bad, but it certainly could have been better. And I hope that it is better for future generations. Thank you so much, Farah. Thank you so much, Sana. Take care. Good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Love you.